and welcome back to another episode of Black Folks Doing Extraordinary Things. I am Adrielle, and if this is your first time visiting my channel, welcome. So excited to have you here. Today, I am joined by my amazing guest, Kimberley John Morgan. Kimberley is a diversity, equity, and inclusion ghostwriter, and she's also the founder of Juncture Consulting, which specializes in DEI ghostwriting as well as career strategy. So today we're going to be chatting with Kimberley, learning more about who she is, her journey, what it is to be a DEI ghostwriter, and yeah, just learn about all the amazing and extraordinary things that she is doing to contribute to our world. So welcome, Kimberley. So excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. So to start, we just want to do a quick intro. We know that you're Kimberley, but I want you to introduce yourself, your age if you're comfortable, where you're located or based, and what it is that you do. What is this DEI ghostwriting title?
So yes, I am definitely Kimberley. I'm not a Kim. And I am 40-ish. And professionally, I am a DEI ghostwriter. I'm part career strategist, and I am all entrepreneur. And what I do in my work is I help people call out discrimination in their workplaces. You know, having the lived experiences, I know what it's like to be in that situation where you're facing microaggressions, you're going through those situations, and it's so hard to think clearly. And so I'm part sounding board for my clients who need to just get this, you know, these feelings and these experiences out. But then also I help them write letters to call out their employers or to call them in or to just invite them into discussion to show how discrimination is showing up in the workplace. And then sometimes, you know, the client can't work out the situation in that workplace. It's just not safe for them to stay. And so that's where the career strategy part comes in, where I help them develop exit plans, you know, where it's like, okay, this didn't go well. They didn't respond to the letter. They don't see any, you know, discrimination happening in their workplace. And so I help them figure out, what can you do next? How can you move on to get to a safer and a better workplace for you?
I love that. It's so like holistic and comprehensive. Instead of just being like, okay, the letter didn't work, I'm going to send you on. It's like, okay, what are the next steps? Which I think a lot of people need support, especially during that time. So talk to me a little bit more about your day to day. I mean, it sounds like your work is varied, but also very much interconnected and related. But what would a typical, and I use typical loosely, what would a typical day look like for you?
A typical day starts the night before. So basically the night before I set my intentions for the next day, because the work doesn't end. And so I wake up knowing what I'm going to be doing each day, whether it's going through some copy, going through a letter, making sure that it's clean, answering inquiries, social media. I kind of have my morning routine of all the things I kind of have to check off the list. And I make sure that email is not one of those first things. Just because once you get caught up in email, you never come out.
Oh, it's over with.
It's over with, you know, it's like your to-do list does not end.
Yep.
And so most of my days are filled with editing. So I have different pieces that are in various points of production. You can't see it, but I have a wall that's full of color-coded Post-its. And so I basically work through the production plan to figure out what stage each letter's in. Is it in draft mode? Is it with my client, or is it being reviewed by them? Have they approved it? Am I having a follow-up meeting with them? Are we in submission mode? And so everything kind of moves along that, you know, pace. And then, you know, once they're happy with it, I'm happy with it, I invoice and then start the process again for the next one. And then that works for my letters, for my website copy, articles, that sort of stuff. And then the career consulting piece and the strategy piece, that kind of weaves in between, because I need those points of difference. So I try to schedule those intentionally in between when I know I'm going to need some people time. So then I have a couple Zoom calls a week, just to, again, give that in-person support to my clients wherever they're at. And then a lot of my other time is just spent doing the back end business stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the paper and I don't know, all the management pieces.
Yes, yes, I understand.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have one full day a week that's just admin, because there's all these moving pieces and I just got to figure it out.
Absolutely, absolutely. What would you say you enjoy most about your work? And I'm going to take a wild guess and say it's not going to be the admin that you just mentioned.
Exactly. What I enjoy most is, I mean, there's so many things. I love being able to connect with people. I love being able to show up to meetings with my head wrap on, and just have like a real talk conversation on a real level with people. And it's amazing how authentically those connections can happen when we're having when we're in community, and where people just implicitly trust me, and I am so thankful for that. But it's so beautiful to have those type of free flowing conversations. And then also just knowing that my work makes a difference, that I validated their experience, even if the outcome doesn't come out the way that we want, just that validation and just seeing that relief, on their face because they've talked to somebody who gets it. That is what I love the most, where I'm like, if I can provide some support around that, I've done my job.
Definitely.
And then what I love about being an entrepreneur is I love not having to ask anybody to take a day off. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's
Amen
beautiful, right? Like, if I need to go do something for my family, or if I am overtired or whatever it is, I don't have to ask for permission. Like, and that's the thing that, I mean, there are days when it's hard, but on those days that are hard, I remind myself, like, you don't have to ask to take the day off. And so that freedom is just wonderful.
I love it. Now, in contrast, what would you say is sort of your least favorite aspect of your work?
I would say it's a tie between all the business management stuff, the admin, the paperwork, like the digital paperwork. I could do without that.
Same.
And also just some of the technology. Like, I wish more of the pieces just inherently fit together, but you have to find apps that can talk to each other, and that they fit together neatly, and they don't all do what you want them to do, and then you have to find the new.
I hear you.
I do without it.
I felt all of that. Yes. Yes. Such a pain. Such a pain.
It is.
It really is. But it's like you have to put in a little bit of time because you want to be productive, or as productive as possible, and move as quickly as possible and keep things streamlined, because it can make your business more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, once you get the right complement of tools,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. And I think I'm probably about 80% there, but it's that remaining 20% where I'm like, I don't know. I have to
Yeah.
figure it out or try a few things to see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for 22 that I'll be able to have that a little bit more streamlined.
Definitely. You got my wheels turning. Now I'm like, I kind of want to go on the hunt for like I know someone's out there doing it, like someone who specializes in helping entrepreneurs and small business owners like streamline and figure out the tools that'll make you most productive. If anybody's
Oh,
watching this that does that, please
I
reach
would pay
out.
them. I would pay them. That
Oh,
would be
absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah. No, I'll pay you. I need to find you.
Yes.
Someone has to be doing it though. Okay. How did you get into this work? How did you become a DEI ghostwriter, and how did you decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, I've always been a writer. I've been a writer since I mean, when I was 6, I asked my parents for a typewriter. Like, I tell everyone
That's
that story because
adorable.
it's super cute, right?
Love
But
it.
I was dead serious. I was just like, I need a typewriter because I had things to say. And I used to write these little letters and like drop them in these make believe, mailboxes. So I come by this honestly, this work very, very
Yeah.
honestly. And, but, growing up in a West Indian home, you know, telling your parents you want to become a writer, they're like doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse. Those are your options. And so I didn't really think that it was possible for me to be a writer full time. And I didn't see anybody who was, a Black woman who was a writer full time.
Right.
And so I said, okay, you know what, I'll just write part time, and just kind of did my own thing on the side. And so I came into this work kind of in the DEI space kind of haphazardly. So I'm trained as a career counselor. As soon as I got my first job in that field, I was working with newcomers to Canada. I guess I should have said that earlier. I'm Canadian. I reside in Ontario. And so working with newcomers to Canada, seeing all the disparity, so those stories where somebody is a doctor back home and they move here and they're driving cabs, that's real,
Yeah.
or seeing, where people have to start all over again and they have to jump through all these hoops where it's like, but they have all this experience. Why is that not recognized? And so seeing how that played out, I mean, I was, much younger then, but, wise enough to know, I'm like, this ain't right. It's not right. And so I sort of became like a back end sort of advocate for my clients. So once we would do all the job search training stuff and they'd be in these spaces, they'd be like, oh, well, this is happening, that's happening. I'd be like, oh, you need to tell them this. Oh, we need to send an email. And
I
I'd
love
be
it.
drafting and just take my errands out and like just go to town on it. And so I've been doing that sort of behind the scenes for 20 years. And word would get around. So this person would tell that person would tell their friend, who would tell their sister, who told, their neighbor. And so I never really had any intention of coming out to the world as this is what I do. I was very happy being a quiet ghost.
Sure.
But then, fast forward to 2020, lost the job that I had. I was working in a college and I was like, all right, world, here I come. And so that's when I kind of flipped it and said, okay, the year of 2020 to 21, I'm just going to do this full time. I
Yes.
mean, the dabbling days are over. I need to formalize some things. So that's kind of what prompted me to be here as an entrepreneur today.
I love that. And you mentioned that you were a career coach initially. How did you get into that? Did you know, like, when you were in school that you wanted to go into career coaching, or how did you end up there?
So after I got my degree, I remember waking up on the Monday after I finished my last course, my last exam. I'm like, now what? Like, I don't know, because I was supposed to figure it out over 4 years, had no idea. And so thankfully, I had a job lined up. It wasn't a job that I loved, but a company that I worked for brought me back in. I was hired on as a receptionist, hated every minute of it. And, very unprofessionally started a list of things I hate about this job and what I would prefer to be doing. And so in that process of figuring out, and just really reflecting on all the things I liked, all the things I enjoyed, all the things I was good at, the writing came through and I'm like, I can write resumes like no one's business. I was helping all my friends get jobs. I'm like,
Yeah.
and they couldn't pay me. I'm like, but if people could pay me to do this, I'm like, that could be a thing.
Yes.
And so I thought, I needed to have some credentialing behind my name. So I went back to school for a year and got that diploma. So that's kind of where the career counseling piece came in because I was always giving people advice. I've learned that they should ask for it before I just give it to them
Yes.
randomly. But
Definitely.
but I was giving advice and always helping people with their job search because I'm like, you spend so much time at work, you can't hate it. You should not hate it. And
Absolutely.
so what was originally a hobby kind of became, paid practice. So that's kind of how I got into that sphere.
Awesome. And what did you study when you were in school?
My degree is in sociology.
Okay.
So I studied all the systems that, we're all a part of and how they impact us. And
Yeah.
my minor is in family and child studies.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think I'm one of those rare people. I'd like to meet others who I use every inch of all the education I've ever had.
Yeah.
Not one part of it has been wasted. When I told people originally that I was going to study sociology, they're just like, what are you going to do with that? And I'm just like, mind your business. I will figure it out. And
Yes. Yes.
so, but I loved everything about it. I love the sociology of work. I love having those sort of conversations about how the systems and the things that we're impacted by, influence our decisions. Like I could talk all day about that. And so that's what makes me a really good coach is when I talk to people, it's not just about the problem at hand. I can extrapolate it like 4 levels out to say, this is
Sure.
why you're feeling this stressed out. And
Mhm.
that just adds to, them understanding themselves better and
Right.
making more informed decisions.
That's awesome. I love that. How do you think your identity as a Black person has impacted your work specifically?
Whoa, I had to really think about this question because, and I got a little metacognitive with it. All the things about me that were a problem when I was working in a predominantly white spaces are things that are celebrated in the work that I do now. And what a night and day sort of experience that is. So my identities allow me to show up in the way that, my leadership skills that were too much, in education. Those are things that people contact me for now. They're just like, yeah, we want you to lead this. We want your opinion on this. You know, the need for me to be in community with people. Like that's always been my thing. When I was working in education, I always wanted to pull in people from all these different departments. And they're
Yeah.
just like, but why? Like, because again, the hierarchy doesn't really speak to that. And
Right.
so I'm just like, but that's what is now celebrated. So I have my own little community of DEI consultants, practitioners who are working in different levels and different areas of the field. And I've pulled them together simply because I want community. And, I feel like I have something to offer them. They have something to offer each other. So again, a problem in predominantly white spaces, celebrated here. I mean, being a Black person, I come from a communal type of culture. So it's just wonderful to be able to live that every day. And then, the final part is like being of Caribbean descent. I'm the firstborn, Canadian in my family. And, my family likes to remind me of that because they're like, yeah, your patois is terrible, but I use it nonetheless. My family, they don't play. They don't play. But I love that I can use elements of that and use that as points of relation with people, and allow people to be seen and heard. So for example, my presence on LinkedIn, I'm very intentional about every now and again just dropping a Caribbean, related post where it has enough patois in there. And like I can write in patois real good. And so I just throw that out there. And again, that would never fly,
Right.
in a corporate or an educational space.
Sure.
But in my own world, in the entrepreneurial world, the DEI space, there's room for it. So
Yes.
my identity is very much at home here and influences everything that I do.
I love that. What do we call it in the DEI space? Your authentic self.
Yes, 100%.
I love it. I love it. What steps or actions would you advise someone to take if they were interested in becoming a DEI ghostwriter?
For anybody who wants to become a writer in any topic, so whether it's DEI or any other subject, I would say you need to read with regularity and write every day. You need to read a lot and just enjoy it and read things that challenge you, read things that, you want to learn about, read different perspectives on things that you already know, but just read, because you're internalizing that. It's almost like food, right? And so you're fueling your skill and then writing every single day. I mean, when I decided to do this full time, somebody told me that there's just like write every single day. And the first 3 months were rough. They were rough because it's like developing new muscles and new skills. And there are days where it was just, throwing myself on the floor, like just tired, don't want to do it. I'm like, what am I doing to myself?
Yeah.
But now it's to the point where I'm so disciplined where if I don't write, and I'm not saying you have to write like a dissertation every day.
Sure.
I'm saying, stem some things out, write down some ideas, write a half of a blog post, write the ideas down. But get into that habit of always being in writing mode, because again, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. It flows a lot easier, over time.
Definitely. Awesome. I love that. Any final words or anything else you think would benefit folks to hear from you or to learn?
I would say for anybody who's thinking about doing a career change of any sort, so if you are an engineer and you want to become an actor, or you're a nurse and you want to become a painter, just know that whatever you are now doing, pieces of it will go with you into the new role. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. Not everything will go with you, but the key pieces will go with you. And anything that you don't know, you can learn. You can learn. I never thought in my 40s that I'd be doing this career change. I kind of thought I'd be in education forever. The term they use in certain circles is you're a lifer, which kind of freaks me out because I'm like, are we in prison? But I kind of thought I would be a lifer because I got into the good school. I had the good job. I had the nice little office. I had all of those things. And it fell apart because it wasn't sustainable. And so I never thought that would be where I'd be in my early 40s, but here I am. And I'm like, you know what? We keep going. It's not like I'm starting over with nothing. You start with all that experience that you have, and then you parlay it into something and you get to where you're going a heck of a lot faster.
Absolutely.
So to anyone who's on the fence, I'd be like, just do it. Just do it. Don't think about it for another year. Just do it. Obviously be smart about it, but just do it.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Kimberly. It's always a pleasure. I love our conversations as always. Again, to those of you watching, thank you for joining us for another episode of Black Folks Doing Extraordinary Things, a series dedicated to exploring all of the amazing work that Black folks all over the world are doing to contribute to our world. Thanks, and I hope you join us again for another episode. See you soon.